Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to SPAJ Productions. And here is
S. Sammy.
P. Pedro.
A. Alec.
and Josiah for J. We're going to be going over the topic of poverty today. And our first question is, what are our own personal experiences with poverty?
Go ahead, Sammy.
Sam, go ahead.
Poverty is bad.
Poverty is bad.
Yeah.
In what cases? Like, where in the world is it bad?
Yeah, Sammy. What are you
Every
talking about?
country has its own poverty, problem. There's not one country where doesn't have some sort of poor person.
So, but like, is there an overall poverty line?
There is.
There is?
Yeah.
It just depends.
It depends on the country where they draw the line at.
Okay. Alec, what do you think about that?
With poverty, there is some in every country. It's there's an issue with poverty in every country, but if you look, there is an overarching poverty. There's a very obvious poverty line in the United States.
So, where in the United States is that most common?
Alabama. No, everywhere. There's mainly it's New Mexico now.
New Mexico,
Arizona,
Vegas.
That area. No, not some of
Yeah.
Vegas, because they have a steady income through. The
Through the strip and obviously gambling and all that stuff, but still towards the south where most of the immigrants are obviously coming in, and there's
Southwest.
more southwest, and obviously it's going to be more poverty stricken only because obviously it's going to be more immigrants that are poor and that need jobs that are going to be coming in trying to make a living.
So, in that last statement that you said, but is poverty only among immigrants or other people?
It
or
affects everyone.
It affects everyone. I mean, it could be.
It could be a white person. It could be a black person. It could be a brown person.
Yeah, who knows? It depends on how their lives started out when they were children. So like, obviously on our website that we made, it's 1 in 3 children are in poverty. So then they were born into poverty. So that means that they would have to really push to actually get out of poverty. Usually most can't, because when they're at the age of working, they usually go to work to support their family, and usually that it resolves in them not having an education. They barely pass high school, or they don't pass high school at all, and they just drop out to work. So then they're just kind of a constant thing of just a constant thing of poverty.
And
It's like a cycle.
It's like a cycle, basically.
But most of these poor people are illiterate, so they can't go back to school or they can't learn. I mean, bare minimum, they maybe know how to speak English.
So, from this point, what is something that the United States can do for that? I mean, like we say,
we do
nowadays,
we do welfare, unemployment, but that doesn't really help.
But like what we see, like Canada doing reduced food, reduced this and that, as well as
Canada, there's just such nice people, eh?
all right.
But the United States, I feel, doesn't do enough for the.
Well, the United States is capitalism. It's meant on you do the thing, and you get paid for it. You're your self-built man.
Yeah,
you do everything to make your own living, not someone else help you to make your own living.
That is one of the downfalls of capitalism. I'm not pro-communist, first of all, but one of the things about capitalism is that if you're at the bottom, there's not going to be anybody that's there to help you other than other people that are at the bottom. So even if you start out on the top, you could lose everything and be in poverty, and then you could just die in poverty.
Okay. So in that situation, is it the parents' fault then that the children or grandparents are in trouble because the kids that are being raised today are in poverty? Is it the parents' fault?
I would never say that it's the parents' fault. I would say more it's the way everything is handled in this country. It's money for
there's certain cases where that's true, but also it's some parents' fault because
yeah.
like they just abandon their kids.
There are parents that will just allow their child to go into poverty, even if you grow up in a very nice, very well-off family. You could still be
Poor.
yeah. You could still after you graduate end up in poverty.
Yeah, like, see, it just depends on. I guess it just kind of depends on the family. I mean, the parents could have like different personalities from one another. You know, different families have different motives and different, different. I would say perspectives to what they're living through. They could encourage their children. We will take care of. We'll take care of all the money problems. We just want you to go to college so you can go to school to get a better education than we did before.
You pay for me to go to nursing home.
And yeah, basically just to like do better than us, to be better than us. We want you to succeed in life and not really stay at the line that we are at now. We want you to go above the line, past the line, so that we can get out of this cycle of just having poverty. But then there's some families where they're so poverty stricken and they can't support
it's generational.
It's just
it just keeps on going.
It just keeps on going
They're
and they can't
with it.
and they just give up. They don't say anything about it, and then after, basically, they just convince their children to work for money to support their family, either during high school or after high school. It doesn't matter.
If they even go to school in the first place.
Yeah, even if they go to school in the first place, either way.
So, in that area of perspective, are they being set up to fail?
No, it's their own will and determination. They're set up to do anything they want. It's up to them to be failures or success.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's always what you do that determines your future. So if you work hard every single day of your life, if you work, you you achieve your goals, then you're gonna make it. But if, say, right after out of high school, you just go live with your parents. I just graduated high school. I don't have to do anything for a year, and then that year becomes 2, and then 3, and then 10, and your parents kick you out because they're tired of you living in their house. And since you've spent so much time not working, just living off what they've done, then you're like a fish out of water, basically.
What does this all affect us personally? But not only that, what is a situation today? Like, we're all in our teenage years. What have you seen, like, situations in school or out of school or work sometimes where you see the poverty?
Like, we know people who are so poverty, like they have to get free reduced lunch. There's some people who don't.
Okay, can you explain free reduced lunch?
Oh, free reduced lunch is a government system through the schools. What help kids who are poverty stricken
That cannot pay for it,
and their family can't pay for it, or themselves can't pay for it. So either they get reduced lunch, where the lunch costs like $2, which is already very well like below usual lunch.
Or they get it just for free, so all they have to do is just scan their ID or whatever, and they get their lunch
for free.
And
usually the lunch is healthy to sustain.
Yeah, it's just enough to get by for the day. But also working with at a pizza place, me and Sammy, we have a customer that occasionally will come in. I believe he's homeless. He's not the cleanest person, I should say.
But he does look like he is in like some serious money issues.
Yeah, he looks like he has money issues, and every day he'll come in. He'll have a couple crumpled up ones or something like that, and he'll order himself a small pizza and just like eat it out. He'll like go outside and sit on the curb and just eat it by himself.
Yeah, I was like, I deliver, so I go to people who are just like their houses are just ramshackle. They look more like a shack put together by boards and nails rather than a house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of housing, is there something in our community or communities around the world that actually help with either the payments of housing or like
Yeah, the Affordable House Act.
explain?
So the Affordable House Act, it's based off your income for the year. So you can buy a house with the income you are on a set plan, or you can go to like Section 8 housing if you're really poor, and Section 8 housing is basically almost free to you house. There's also in Brighton, it's called Brighton Housing Authority, and they help out poor people or just people who can't survive on their own, and they give them a place to stay.
Speaking of here in Brighton, this is another occasion where I was working and I had contact with a homeless person. It was around Christmas of 2016, I believe, and a blizzard had just come out of nowhere, like it was snowing really crazy, and there was, for the past couple weeks, there was this homeless guy. I knew he was homeless. He was sleeping right outside, like right by my car, and he would come in every day. He'd get himself a sandwich and a small hot coffee, and one day it starts to blizzard, and the police show up, and they're like, is there anywhere you can go? And he says no, he hasn't spoken with any of his family for at least a decade, and he's been sleeping on curbs basically. And after like a 20-minute conversation, the police took him to this place called Bessie's Open in Brighton, that's basically Section 8 housing.
And there was also this lady a couple years back. She's doing really well now, but she used to live under a bridge. She'd have her own little bed up there and everything, and she'd go panhandle in the corner. But now people have donated to her, and she has an apartment that actually the police got enough money for her for 10 years rent on an apartment.
So is it the community's job, community meaning local government or local people even, to help those who are in the surrounding area that are found to be homeless or without a place to go or stay?
I think it's
certain people. It's because like some people, yes, they're poor and they don't have a place to stay. They're homeless. They don't have any money. It's not their choice. It's just some bad luck. But there's also people who make that choice to be homeless because they have done drugs. They squander all their money. They're gamblers. They're alcohols. It's just bad.
Okay. So being in the with the lady that the police officers helped and everything, there is other references that come, like there's a homeless hotel is what it's called, down in Denver, Colorado, and it's where the government actually pays the hotel money to accept the homeless, and so actually he doesn't accept anyone else but the homeless now, and like people will go there and offer free food and free just free food and like stuff to work on or stuff to do while they are there. And so do you have another reference for that, Pedro?
For like
homeless people. So.
Okay, so
just experiences.
well, when I went to California, it was for spring break. We went to go to Disneyland and Universal Studios. But when we were driving around, obviously, in California on the highways, we were driving around, and we would see maybe littered trash on the side of the road. But we thought maybe it was just trash that people just threw out of their cars because they didn't want to take care of it. But it was actually, there was like makeshift houses with like drapes or blankets, towels, anything that they could find. It was just multiple houses of people just living by bushes and trees, and like trying to make a living, just trying to live out there. And I didn't think of it that there was that many, but when we got closer to the city, closer to like the populated area, towards the metropolitan area, I started seeing like more and more shanty towns. It's like just basically made up shacks with just random materials that you could probably find in a dumpster or anything like that, and they just had like small communities of basically people that were homeless, and this was everywhere. This was like not just like one little specific area. This was widespread all over, like 100 miles north and 100 miles south, basically just multiple and multiple homeless people just trying to basically trying to live in California, and like they can't. I don't know if they could or they could not, or if they were put in that position to get out of that kind of poverty that they couldn't even afford a house, they couldn't afford clothes for their children, or afford food, and that they needed to go through dumpsters or go find trash in the streets to build houses on the sides of highways just to find shelter.
So basically, it was like pockets of shanty towns all over California.
Basically.
So we can relate this to the Great Depression and Voodoo Mills.
Basically, yeah, just makeshift communities of people that are homeless and that they couldn't afford anything. And I don't know what California does, obviously, because I don't live there, but I don't know how they could allow such things like that to happen. I mean, like, it's everywhere, and I mean they could do something about it, but it doesn't seem like they do.
The government doesn't really care about the people; they just care about their taxes.
Exactly.
That reminds me of a situation a couple of years back. I was driving to California, and we went through Las Vegas, and we had to stay at this hotel over the night because it was probably like 8:30 at night when we got there, and it was another 6-7 hours till we got to California. So we quickly check in at this little hotel right off the strip, and there's this big cement wall right outside the parking lot. It separates the parking lot from the street. It's this big cement wall, and on the opposite side of it was probably 10, 20 tents of little families living on the opposite side of this, like right outside this hotel. And nobody in the hotel, like, we asked the hotel manager about it, and they didn't even address that they were there. They
kind of shoved it off to the side, saying it's nothing to worry about.
They swept it under the rug, basically.
I went down to New Mexico, and like, if the local hotels like that are personally owned, if they did not fill the rooms for the night, and it was colder, they would actually go out and have the homeless and say, hey, you can sleep in this room for tonight, and then in the morning you have to leave at this time. And so the hotels in New Mexico were actually letting their homeless just sleep in the hotel rooms for nights that it was super cold. Another thing, just locally, I went to the library, and there was a gentleman and his father or uncle standing outside the library asking for money to get to Arvada, their home. And as I was with one other person, they both asked us at separate times if I could donate money for them, and they just wanted to bus down to Arvada. And though, like, it shows those situations in our everyday lives that we see people struggling, whether it's they need to get back to where they need to be, or they need to find a place here, or they need to just start growing and start living their lives.
So that kind of reminds me of something I was just thinking about. We have people who will go out and beg, and you don't know the situation they're in. And so, not knowing the situation that everybody comes from, there are a lot of people that will disguise themselves, air quotes, if you could, yeah, I hope you'd see it. But there are people that will go out dressed as if they were homeless, and they beg for money on the side of the road, and then 5, 6, 7 hours later, somebody could see them like getting up and walking into this really nice car and getting in it and driving away. And so that's probably why the government doesn't care as much, is because they don't know everybody who lives in poverty.
But there's also the fact that most people that don't know America's history, or I mean, you know America's history, but only what they want you to know. Like, hey, we did this great thing. Ooh, revolution, everything like that.
You know what you're told.
You know what you're told, but
You need to research more to know everything that we know ourselves.
yes, because the government they slaughtered almost all the Native Americans, 90%, and they sent them on reservations. And now, in present day, more than 75% of reservations are failing, and they're basically dying of starvation and thirst. They have no running water, no toiletries, no food. It's just a barren wasteland of just maybe like a shack.
So just as a reference, Sammy is a Native American himself. So, nobody get up in arms like, this little white boy is talking about Native issues. He doesn't have a place talking about that.
Anyways, back to the native issues and as well as just worldwide issues. Is it just strictly one race that's having issues?
Obviously not. Poverty is everywhere. It's in Europe, it's in the USA, it's in Mexico, it's in South America, it's in China. It just depends on the location you choose. Because obviously, if you go out to the rural areas, there's not going to be as many homeless people because it's rural and there's just farmers there. They have their living. There's not that many people there. Now the homeless people, obviously, they would go to the populated areas because then they would get more money. They would get more money for begging. Obviously, in the metropolitan areas, so you would find them more there because it's more populated.
It's basically, what am I trying to say here?
But the other thing, like, if it was more of the rural or metropolitan areas, why do we find people? Brighton is, I would call a rural area.
Yes.
I wouldn't call it a very high up and
It's
trafficking area.
It's a town that's becoming more gentrified. It's becoming a bit more.
It used to be really small and
We're just a suburb town. We're not
Yeah.
that big, but we're
The
not
only reason-
regional.
Over the past maybe 4 years, we've expanded a lot.
the only thing is because we got the railroad going through, and also we have the Denver International Airport over there, which is making our city bigger. But that's probably all. But we are basically, if we were to say get rid of the railroads and get rid of the international airport, it would just be a small rural town that we live in.
Mainly farmers.
Yeah.
And basically mainly farmers or somebody that works in the town.
And back on what I was trying to say earlier, any country with capitalistic ideas like survival of the fittest, something like that,
Like private ownership or something like that.
private ownership, anything like that, there's more likely to be people in poverty in government systems like that. But
China's communist, and more than 60% of the population is poverty-stricken.
This is very true.
Yeah.
And okay, so to switch it a little bit, what can we personally, the four of us, and whoever is watching and whatever, what can we do to potentially stop the poverty, the growing issue of poverty?
well, what we plan to do ourselves is any money we raise or any money we just have on our own, anything we can spare, we're going to give to this place I mentioned a little bit earlier in the stream, this Bessie's Hope. And we're going to try and do whatever we can to just help out the people there. And just basically all over Brighton, anybody we find.
Okay. Should we restrict ourselves to only helping people in the community?
No, we should do whatever we can to try and get a bigger movement, or even the government, to try and help these people in.
Government's not going to help us.
So,
If we have enough support, we could possibly persuade the government to help these poverty-stricken people.
So, these charities that we talked about in, what was it?
Bessie's Hope.
Bessie's Hope. So, can we team up with those different charities to overall get a certain gain, to gain like an ability to get people in more homes or create more homes for homeless people or more apartments or low income housing or stuff like that. Can we ourselves do that?
Yeah, we can, because there's multiple Section 8 housing in Denver. What is just closed down? It's basically a little if you ever seen a motel with a little courtyard in the center, that's what these Section 8 housing look like. They're just little rooms with maybe a kitchenette in it, and everything's fully functional. But the government has closed it down, and no one can even get in for whatever reason, and they're not being used. So, I mean, they're there. It's just the matter of putting them to use.
If the infrastructure is there, I don't see why we can't already put people up in there. It's kind of, personal opinion here, it's kind of stupid for the government to try and restrict homeless people from living nice just for the fact that they're homeless. They deserve to try and better themselves. How are they going to better themselves if they probably won't even make it through winter?
On that fact there, my personal own experiences, there are stuff down 16th Street Mall, which we all know is a little strip mall in the heart of Denver, and most people that are homeless and are looking for give outs will go to the 16th Street Mall just because of the amount of people there. And just the amount of traffic and most people that are coming through and trying to just have a fun time, they're going to try there and get as many people as they can. During the winter, though, we find that there's less traffic in Denver in general because most shops will close.
Sucks.
And exactly, the snow sucks, as Sammy puts it.
Hurts.
So, what are they doing then? What are the homeless people doing, and what can we do to put put them in places that they will not freeze, or put them in places that they have some warmth and some food, but isn't there like limits on the amount of people in each of those buildings, like churches and stuff like that?
I don't think there should be, unless it's completely crowded with people.
They should have at least enough space for like people to sleep and
Like-
move around. But like
It should be enough space where, like, disease can't spread.
where it's more clean and not really just a crowded space.
Like in, you'll see it in movies, disaster movies or something like that. They'll evacuate to like a football stadium or something like that. And in Colorado, we have this big Sports Authority field. It's a huge, massive football field. And looking at that space alone, we could probably take all of the homeless people in probably all of Colorado. We can fit most of them in there with enough space.
Most of them, if not all.
Yeah, because there's these big corridors on the very outside where people can set up like sleeping bags, stuff like that. There's central air, and then there's the big open stadium. It doesn't have a roof, so I don't see why people would sleep there. But
Still possible.
it is possible.
But then there comes the fact of water and food.
Yeah, but since it's a sports field, they have a large enough supply of. They have working pipes. You need toilets. You need water fountains. So obviously, it's a big stadium.
So this is a good idea, but who would manage it all? Who would be in charge of such a big space, accepting food, donations in, and distributing it out to everyone?
Me, I volunteer to contribute.
I-
It has to be a big enough organization where
This has to be like a nation organization
I
or
would-
something
it's
like
not
that.
government owned but privately owned.
But,
So
yeah.
where like it has enough like non-profit workers,
Yeah.
everything like that. So each can run like their own section of the stadium, and you have each like manager of that section of the stadium with workers in between, handing out food, blankets, water.
Basically, the domestic version of the UN. Or
Yeah.
the domestic version of the UN. So I would say like a small section of the police force that trains recruits in just caring for these people.
Yeah, keeping the peace. So it'll be its own little nation inside the sports club.
Yeah, like its own city state.
So, in that sense, but how do we keep it clean? Because we know at some point we'll have to.
Well,
That's what we have the homeless people for.
Yeah,
Because they don't have anything to do. They're homeless and they need something to do. So they can clean, they can cook, they can learn trades. So they can go out into the world and actually not be homeless and make a living for themselves.
basically use it as a center for training them for the outside world where they're able to actually find jobs. Like, for example, they could say, hey, I lived in Sports Authority Field for some amount of time. I was down on my luck. I got training on how to cook, so I know how to cook for you guys. You could train me further, something like that.
It's basically so take a rehabilitation center and put it on steroids, and that's what we're talking about.
Essentially.
Okay. Where would you guys go with this idea? Because you have such a good idea, what is the next steps for that idea? Like, in the end, like where
Funding.
Yeah.
So presenting it to some organization that's big enough and is willing enough to do it, to do the things that we want, but we would have to plan it out more obviously because we have to think about costs. We would think about the food, the water, who's going. Obviously, funding is good, but there's only so much funding to where we could actually provide for them
By ourselves.
by ourselves. We would have to think about huge campaigns, massive campaigns, probably spread across nationwide to find,
Even worldwide.
maybe even
this
worldwide.
is a huge thing.
So
think about.
do you think that this idea of using these large open spaces or closed spaces to be set for the homeless would be a nationwide or even a global wide activity based?
No, there was a petition, because you remember the Winter Games, Sochi, and all the Olympic stadiums. Use
Yeah, after they're used for the Olympics, they basically go to crap. And I remember seeing a bunch of pictures of the Brazil ones, and it's only been a few months after that, and the water is already crusted over with like leaves and it's
But
green.
that's perfect because they have all the housing, they have all the water, they have the stadiums, they have everything there. It's ready available.
And
It's just they need to put it to use.
it isn't in use.
It's just dependent. It also depends on like if the country is willing to
Use it again.
willing to use it again to
For support.
to try to
Rehabilitate the homeless.
no, not rehabilitate the homeless. I'm talking about the actual place to
Reuse the place.
refurbish it. Yes, to refurbish everything to obviously to have inspectors to come check the housing,
The structure.
the structures, the plumbing, the electricity.
And then they would have to hire actual instructors to train the homeless.
Exactly, and they could probably train the homeless to work on the site to fix plumbing problems, electricity problems, providing food, cooking, anything like that.
But I feel like if we were going to start trying to start a worldwide movement, we would have to start on
Start
a local
small,
level.
exactly.
So,
Like some of the abandoned buildings over here.
so what we've done is we set up a GoFundMe page. We should have a link somewhere. If not, we'll have it for you at the end. But this GoFundMe page is set up to try and provide funds to assist the homeless people just here in Brighton, and hopefully after we start a big enough movement here just in our local level, hopefully it could get seen by some sort of government official, the news, anything like that, and it can be expanded upon.
So with the GoFundMe, what are we going to do with the money? You said so are we going to go to an organization and give it to a certain organization so they can work within their own profits or non-profits?
Yes, what we plan to do is take the funds without with very minimal trading hands, all of the money donated is going to go to Bessie's Hope, and just the issue of getting it to them. So, just yeah. The link should have just appeared in the chat for our website. You could find the link on there.
Did we put the website down there too?
Yeah,
The website link is there.
The link to the website is on there. Just go over to the donate tab and then just
Obviously, if you click on the donate now button, it'll
take you to GoFundMe.
It'll take you to the GoFundMe.
And we have information more on poverty there if you want to keep on with the struggle.
Exactly.
So,
on our website.
And if you have any more questions or concerns with us, with Sammy, Pedro, Alec, and myself, Josiah, you can post questions on our website.
There's also
contact us.
There's also a phone number associated there, so you could send us a message with your question, with your concern, or even if you just want to say
Hey, good job.
that you support what we're doing.
Yep, and the other thing is, please contact us if you're willing to donate, and we hopefully will get on the air again soon, and we will say thank you to our donators and whatnot if you want to be recognized. So is this going to end our podcast today?
Yes.
So thank you everybody for listening to us ramble for 40-something minutes.
This is SPAJ Productions, and thanks and have a wonderful afternoon.
Yep.